Today we're sitting down with Dr. Harold Best. Dr. Best, Harold, is the author of Unceasing Worship and Music Through the Eyes of Faith, and is somebody who we're big fans of here at Sojourn. And he came and joined us at our Cultivate Beauty Art and Film Festival this year. And we're just very blessed that he's in town and able to join us. And then we're also joined by Chip Stam, who is a professor at the Southern Baptist Theological Seminary and is a gifted and very experienced choral conductor, and is also the minister of music at Clifton Baptist Church, which is a sister church of ours here in the city. And so it's just a joy for us to sit down today. And over the next couple of weeks, as we kind of roll out this series, we'll just be asking a variety of questions about worship, about culture, and about music and the arts. And so thanks for joining us for this. We hope you enjoy it. I thought we could just dig right in. Chip, if you had some questions you wanted to lead us off with.
Well, I've been so blessed over the years knowing Harold and being pushed toward deeper thinking. And one of the things that you mentioned today in a lecture, Harold, is this idea that text in the things that we sing, particularly in church, most of us are probably church musicians, that the text is what carries the story and informs us and things like that, but the music is so powerful to either augment our understanding of that or either diffuse it. And I like the little one-liner, the mature believer is easily edified, and yet I find myself, I'm so easily distracted by things that are of so little import, of so little. Why can't that be a whole step higher? And it just takes the Christ out of it for me, because I'm just I'm grabbing at my preferences. Could you just talk a little bit more about that idea of text and music and how they interplay to allow us to jump into this experience?
I'll try.
Yeah.
I'll try. The wonderful thing about church music, and by church music I want immediately to mean sung music. I want immediately to refer church music to its center, which to me is congregational song. I used to be of the kind that would take church music to be a large collection of fine events. And I would center my attention more around the totality of organ playing, choral singing, the liturgy, so on and so forth, all of which are good, none of which I decry. Mm-hmm. It's simply that I've gotten to the point where I put in perspective the centrality of congregational singing because of two things. Everybody can sing, and a congregation of mixed talent singers can sing beautifully. That's one of the great gifts that we have. The human voice need not to be trained well to sing well in concert. It's a glorious gift that God has given us. And the fact that congregational song is texted, namely that we sing truth. And most of the time, we either sing theology directly from Scripture, or we sing a metrical or paraphrased version of the Scriptures, but in any case, we're singing truth. Mm-hmm. And the burden, therefore, that lies on the shoulders of the pastoral ministries of the church. And by pastoral ministries, I don't mean just the worship leader, but I mean the whole pastoral leadership of the church. The burden that lies on their shoulders is one of assuring, in the face of Almighty God, assuring themselves and their people that truth at its best is being sung. It's being accurately sung, it's being concisely sung. Theological truisms are not to be ignored. Biblical certainties are not to be slopped over. That truth is truly to be sung, and the width of truth is truly to be sung. Which means that because of the primacy of text, music must play a servant role. But the rub comes as you've said, over the power of music.
Right.
Usually a congregation will make its choice about a worship song on the basis of the music, not the text.
Right.
People will choose a church by what music they like.
Right.
You're not going to hear anybody say, I chose this church because they have good texts in their singing.
Well, we hope they would do that.
We would want them to,
Right.
but the power of music is such, it's a legitimate power, but we can misplace it. The power of music is such that quite often we're driven by the wrong paradigm, and as a result of that, we craft our definitions of worship around music rather than truth.
Even music, we have to define a bit, because when I think of music raw, as someone who's studied and played in lots of different styles, I think, what is the melody? What is the harmonic structure? What is the rhythmic underline? But I think a lot of people are choosing not for those things, but for instrumentation, or the sophistication of a sound system, or the fact it's just even the sound of a tracker organ might be the sweet balm for one person and the thing that keeps them away. My friend Mike is someone who has tutored me in the sound of the distorted electric guitar to be a sweet, expressive thing.
Yeah.
Well, for that sound, for some people, it says, no way, Mabel, let's get out of here.
Sure.
So that's part of caring. You used the word pastoral musician or pastoral ministries. I think when the musicians in a church can think and act pastorally, it is the text and it's that music, but it's done in such a way that draws people in. Mature people and immature, well-trained musicians and not so. That says, come into our song, our confession, our praise.
There's a difference between drawing and driving, and
Yeah.
to draw people with the humility
Yeah.
of music making, in which music becomes the servant of the liturgy, and the liturgy, whatever that is, an order of worship, whatever, is the servant of the Word of God. Then music sinks somehow into its rightful place as the foot washer in the act of congregational song or corporate song, and that's a tough thing to pull off.
Where driving music is, you better jump on, or we're
You
going to
better jump on, and once you're on, you can't get off. I won't let you.
You know, something you said, you talked about where the tracker organ is the balm, you know, or the distorted guitar might be. And that points to another thing you said earlier in a lecture today, when you talked about how music is a sponge and it soaks up context. And then when you pull the music out of one context,
So it soaks up content.
Context.
No, it soaks up context.
Okay.
In other words, the more music is repeated in the same place, the more it will begin to mean that place and be equated with it. So it's a sponge.
And so for a lot of folks, you know, coming from similar backgrounds to mine, there are musical styles and sounds that might be what you would call sort of contemporary praise music, or other folks might say, well, it's the sound of that piano and organ kind of thing, that speaks to them of a context that's spiritually dead and vacuous to them, where others would hear our sound and experience the same kind of thing. I think that's one of the challenges, is that we have to pastorally call people to relinquish those idols. Because when we're grabbing a hold of the idols of preference, and when we're carrying our personal histories and projecting that into other contexts, and saying, well, that's not worship because of my history, that seems to be a dangerous thing, but that seems to be going on.
Yeah, and that, you know, that you can summarize that attitude in a single mission statement: my way is Yahweh. By virtue of that, you tend to make a very quick equation between you and the Lord of Hosts, and what you do being entirely approved and both approved and restricted by Him, and there's no other way to Him but that way. And good pastoral musicianship does begin certainly with familiarity. I mean, it's wrong, and I used to be wrong as can be when I was doing my doctoral work, that the role of the church musician is to raise standards, shake people up, do the newest art, become the culture leader and all of this. that was a mistaken assumption, even though the content that I was defending was not mistaken, because I love great art to this day and I love great music. But I had to learn very quickly how to strip that idolatry of itself and find out that really doing familiar music, doing music that people like initially, is a very wonderful thing. And the job that I have is to find out what they like, and then in the doing of what they like, I begin to stretch them very carefully, very conservatively, very pastorally, stretch them so that they won't be frozen into what they like, because frozenness is idolatry. So we're going to be fighting idols. I don't care how we cut it. We're going to be fighting idols. And that's really the Christian's battle. All sin is idolatry, and all idolatry is sin.
Right. It seems like among the music, the various shapes and sizes of trained musicians, both in popular styles and in more academic styles, those idols are easy to identify. There's some that sort of set up a historic, some kind of music making that dates back 50 or 100 or 150 years ago as a norm. They would tend to be ones of my Episcopalian friends who would want the old prayer book, the old language, don't update it. And others set up as the norm the absolute most current thing. So whatever the last two demo CDs from the publishers come, we've got to be current. And both are idols.
Yeah, true. And traditionalism, I love that word, as opposed to tradition. Traditionalism is the idolatry that we fight, and I don't care what the musical style is. I've said this before, and I really think I'm right. Church music is based in familiarity. People choose a church on the basis of what they already like. And therefore, they are locked into some sort of tradition, whether long-term or short-term. But the creative definition of tradition has to do with something that can't stand still. Conservatism has to do with saying the same thing in fresh ways. So when you take conservative and tradition and treat them theologically correctly, under a biblical rubric of moving out by faith, moving out Abrahamically by way of sojourn, then tradition is always evolving, and conservatism is the engine that protects the motion as we keep pressing on, pressing on, pressing on. So I love tradition, and nobody's excused from it. It's what we do with it, whether we freeze it, as you've just suggested, within a 2-week lifespan, and a half-life is 24 hours, or a 50-year thing. We're snookered as soon as we freeze it.